everyone, I am Priyanshi from Nadiad Focus Private Limited. Students, today I am here to share about how to get prepared for IELTS. So students, if you want to know more information, then do like and subscribe our channel and don't forget to hit that bell icon. Students, in this lesson, I am going to talk through 15 most important steps that you need to consider to make your IELTS exam successful. So now, let's begin with the first one and the most obvious, that is learning about the test. Of course, you shouldn't enter to examination hall until you know as much as about the test. So first one is all about the content. So student, you should know about the content of each different task, that is listening, reading, writing and speaking. Next is about the format. You need to know about the format of each of those tests. You should also know what is going to happen in your exam. You should also know what the problems you might face, because yesterday one of the students called me and said, "Teacher, in the listening section, audio runs just once." So that's the format you need to know, that in listening section, audio runs just once. Students, all this information you will get online. So student, you need to read as much as possible so you know exactly what will going to happen in your test. Students, of course, when you are learning IELTS, then you need to know about the timing. For example, let's say you are doing reading and writing. So at that time, the timing is on your hand, because you are going to get only 1 hour to fulfill your task. So students, it's your choice how to manage timing. So understanding the timing is very much important in your IELTS. Now let's see for scoring. So students, you need to know how your band scores are assessed. For listening and reading, it's easy to score because it have point system. But for writing and speaking, it's quite different. So students, once you will understand how you are assessed, then it will be quite easy for you to reach your band scores. Now let's see for FAQs. So FAQ means frequently asked question. Students, the more you will learn, the more questions will be arised. So you need to read as much as possible to sort out all your problems. Now let's move on the next topic. Students, once you have understand what IELTS is, then now time to understand the different type of test. So for listening and speaking, you are going to have same exam. But for reading and writing, you are going to have 2 types of tests, general training test and academic test. So before you go for exam, you need to know about the both type of tests perfectly. Students, general training test is for moving abroad and academic test is for university entrance. Now let's move on step number 3, and I think this is one of the most important step that you take. That is, you have to be realistic with your goals. Students, you need to have a fixed aim for IELTS, that what band score you are aiming. So let me explain you a little bit about being realistic. So student, number 1 is deciding a band score, that what band score you are aiming for. 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5 and so on. Be very clear about the band score you really needed. Students, now after deciding band score, you have to check your level of English. Students, it's very important to check your level of English to get your chosen band score. Students, if your level of English is low, then first you need to increase your level of English and then go for IELTS. And if your level of English is okay, then you can go for IELTS. And if your level of English is somehow less, then you can go for both. So students, it's very important about being realistic that what band score you will get realistically with your level of English. So now let's come to the next topic, which is about having time frame. Students, again it's all about being realistic that how much time will you take to make sure your level of English is at a good level or not for the band score you are aiming for. And how long it will take a time to learn the art and skills. Now, many of students ask me that how much time will it take. So, it's an impossible question because some students can do practice 1 week, 2 weeks and score the chosen bands. But many of students do practice whole year but they cannot able to score their chosen bands just because level of English. So student, it depends on your speed of learning and your level of English. Now let's move on step number 4, and that is knowing the requirement of your band score. Students, as you have decided your band score and you have checked your level of English and you already decided that how you are going to study for your IELTS. Students, if you are going to do English or IELTS in English, then you need to look more deeply at the band score you have chosen. And you need to know the requirements of that band score. Now, as I have said earlier that for listening and reading, it's easy to score because it have one system. But for speaking and writing, it's quite different. Because here the examiner is looking for your specific language and your skill. And you need to know exactly that for what examiner is looking for. For the band score you want. And when you understand more about the band score, then you will get improving. Now let's move on the next step, and that is learn about the question types. Students, this is very important because for listening and reading you are going to have 10 different types of questions. So it's very important that you learn before you go for exam. Because in exam you are not going to get enough time to understand the question and to answer it. So it's very important to go through all the types of questions before you enter to examination hall. And for step 6, it's very important that you did develop tips and techniques to deal with each type of question. So that's very important. And of course, it's not only for listening and reading but also for your writing task too. Because in writing task you are going to have essay writing, and students, remember that IELTS essay writing is totally different to a normal essay writing. I have noticed many of students, they just start practicing by taking a random topic for essay writing. But students, that's a completely wrong method, because IELTS have specific types of questions. So it's very important that you know what types of question your examiner will ask you and how you are going to deal with it to get successful in your IELTS exam. Students, for your general training writing task 1, you are going to have a letter writing, and you are going to have different types of letters. So students, before you go for exam, you need to go through all the types of letters. And for your academic task 1, you are going to have 6 different types of chat. So go through all the types of chat to get successful in your test. Now let's have a look on step number 7, and step number 7 is about common topics. Students, there are common topics which are going to come in your IELTS exam. So you need to prepare them, and you also need to prepare vocabularies to be able to talk about the topics. Now students, even if your level of English is a right level, still you need to prepare vocabularies and common topics, because now this is particularly important for your speaking task. Because while you are answering, you have to answer directly, and all the vocabularies should be on tip of your tongue, means ready to use without the hesitation. Now let's have a look on step number 8, and step number 8 is about developing ideas and topics. Students, you can develop ideas and topics from variety of sources, and it's very important that if you have a time, then have a look on documentaries, BBC News, many more interesting magazines, have a look on new scientists, have a look on new world issues, etc. Students, all of these sources will helpful to you to develop right English, and will also helpful to you for your writing, reading, listening and speaking section. Students, now if you don't have time, if you have only couple of weeks, then probably you are not going to get time to do all this. But if you do have time, then it's an excellent way of preparing for your IELTS. Now, many of students ask me that would they listen only documentaries and BBC News which have Australian English and British English? Then no, because IELTS is all about international English language testing. So you are going to have variety of accents. Now let's move on step number 9, and that is do practice to assess your listening and reading. Now students, it's easy to assess for your listening and reading because you are going to have a point system. So you are going to get points for each correct answers. So it's easy. And for listening and reading, you are going to get lots of internet materials nowadays. And you also have practice tests. So you can easily assess your listening and reading. But students, I prefer that have a use of Cambridge IELTS, which is real and published by IELTS. Now let's move on step number 10, and that is get your speaking and writing assessed by an experienced IELTS teacher. Now students, for listening and reading, it's easy to assess because it have point system. So you can do practice by yourself and can calculate the band score. But for speaking and writing, it's difficult to assess. So you need to find an expert IELTS teacher. Students, if you find an examiner or an ex-examiner, then that's the best way because they can give you more accurate feedback. But if you can't, then find an expert IELTS teacher to assess your speaking and writing perfectly. And when your speaking and writing get assessed, at that time don't just look at the band score you got, but look that on which point you are weaker. Now let's move on step number 11, and that is plan your development and practice. Lots of students ask me for schedule for preparing their IELTS perfectly. But almost it's impossible to give schedule to all the students because every student have different strength, different weaknesses, and they have different amount of time availability. So the most important thing is that you do cover all the aspects of test before you go for your exam. So as long as you are getting all the question types prepared, you know exactly that what's going to happen. Students, you have prepared your common topics and vocabularies, and it's really the most common you can do in a short period of time for your schedule. But if you have available more time, then of course what you have to do is plan more development for the question types which you are getting difficulty and try to improve them with different techniques. So that can be organized by you the moment you get to know where all your weaknesses are. So develop and practice. Now let's move on step number 12, and that is building speed and time management skill for your reading and writing task. Now when you are preparing for IELTS, then you need to spend some time for building speed, because for reading and writing you are going to get a fixed time of 1 hour. So that's difficult for a student to finish all the 40 questions in 1 hour. Or to write task 1 and task 2 in 1 hour. So students, it's very important to learn time management speed for your IELTS. So students, it's very important that you do practice at home and check that how long you take time to finish your task 1 and task 2. And students, you also have to check that how long you take time to skim and read a passage and scan for finding answer. So students, it's very important to build speed if you want to do well in your IELTS. Now let's move on step number 13, and that is do fall in practice tests under exam condition. And students, it's very important that you do practice under exam conditions before you go for a real exam. So students, you have to do practice same as your exam. Now for a listening, reading and writing, you are going to get 2 hours and 40 minutes in your exam. So students, you have to do practice in 2 hours and 40 minutes at your home. And students, keep in mind that when you are practicing at home, at that time you don't have to take any kind of break, because when you go for your real exam, at that time toilet may be far away from your exam hall, so your time will get waste and your 3-4 question will get skipped. So it's very important that you do practice at home same as your exam. Students, for practice, you don't need to go any school because practice you can do with the help of stopwatch at your home. So, it's my request to all the students that do at least one time practice under exam condition before you go for a real exam. Now, let's move on step number 14, and that is about GET training. Now, students, for training you have two types. Either you can go for IELTS online training or you can go for IELTS school. Students, today I am going to explain you in detail about how to select a best training for you, and I am going to explain you both the types of training, that is online training or IELTS school. So let's start with the IELTS school. So students, today I am going to explain you first in detail about how to select best IELTS school to score good bands. Now, if you have decided that you want to go for IELTS school, then firstly you need to consider so many things to select best IELTS school, because if suppose you don't select best school, then you are going to suffer. So student, firstly you don't have to run over attractive advertisement. And who are saying that we are at number 1 over Gujarat for IELTS coaching and we are having so many coaching centers? Because they just doing advertisement of only students who are scoring good bands, but they never show how they treat the students who really needs help and who are weak. So students, before going for IELTS coaching, you have to notice all these things. Students, you are going to spend your parents' hard-working money, that's the secondary thing. But if you will not select best IELTS school, then definitely you will not able to score your chosen band in your chosen period. So it's my request to all the students that please don't hurry to select IELTS school, because if once you will select best IELTS school, then it will be quite easy for you to look forward for your dreams. Now let's see how to select best institute. So students, first of all you have to select 6 institute which you like, and after selecting you have to take a demo class of all the 6 institute which you have selected. And remember that when you are taking demo class, at that time you have to make a notes of each day. And after finishing demo classes of all the 6 institute, then you have to go through all the notes and you can easily able to identify that which institute is more preferable for you. And students, you also have to notice that when you are going for inquiry, at that time how they are considering you. So students, I hope that this idea will helpful to you to achieve band scores. Now for the students who are having financial problem, for them they can go to the institute which they have selected and can talk to them. By doing this, you can easily able to identify that who is strictly doing business and who is helping students. Now let's move on step number 15, and that is take your test when your English and IELTS skills both are at their strongest. Now this is not possible for all the students, but I request to all the students that if you do have time, then do as much as possible practice and then go for IELTS exam to score good bands in one trial. So students, I hope that the information which I have provided to you that may helpful to you, and you can easily able to open your door to future to get a successful career. So student, for more information, feel free to contact Jai Maharaj Edu Focus Private Limited, because our team is always ready for the student who need help anytime. So contact details are given below. Thank you.